Hello and welcome back, and I've been told that my intros are basically BS, so I'm just gonna wing it here. My name is Steven Villani, and I'm here with Sean McGee, Basement Sports Talk, per the usual, and we got a variety of different things we're gonna talk about today.
Per the usual.
Per the usual.
This is unbelievable.
You said you wanted to see what I could pull out of my ass, and I'm grabbing for anything right now.
Fine. Anyway, I was testing Steven to come up with something not more original, but something different than the usual intro
I did
we
something
have.
different.
And I guess that's what he decided to do. I guess we'll just go with it anyway. It won't be that. It's not gonna be. I don't know the word damaging to us with the 5 people that listen. So I guess that's how we'll open this podcast. But we do have some interesting topics, like Steven said. The first one being
Colin Kaepernick and some good fits for where he could end up. So the first, I can't talk. I guess I will get us started off with the Redskins probably being one of the top teams that I think Colin Kaepernick could go to.
Now, please tell me why the Redskins.
I think the Redskins make sense because of the inexperience at the quarterback position. They really need that.
So they need a
guy.
Quarterback that's been out for 3 years.
But he's still got more experience than Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Allen combined.
Both that were rookies last year, but yes, go on.
Kyle Allen was a rookie last year.
Alex Smith is going to come back and lead that team to the playoffs.
He's still got another year probably
Alex
before
Smith?
he come back. Yeah.
No, he's not. Watch him come back in the middle of this season.
I don't know about that.
Yes.
But anyway, we're not talking about Alex Smith. We're talking about Colin Kaepernick. And I think that if Dwayne Haskins starts to struggle, you could kind of see that a potential for the signing of Colin Kaepernick. Kyle Allen played all right for the Panthers last year.
I think he did pretty good considering the situation he was thrown into.
To be fair, though, I would expect him to perform decently well with the weapons of Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, of course that helps, but
it does help. And the
Redskins
are
the Panthers weren't no stacked powerhouse either.
No, but the Redskins are even worse.
But you're
worse
right.
off.
You're right.
That's why I'm thinking Colin Kaepernick would be the perfect situation here because it's really a low risk, high reward move.
But here's the thing that it didn't stand out to me was because you have Dwayne Haskins, right? They're going to invest a lot of time into him, even if he's not playing necessarily well. Then they have another young guy in Kyle Allen who seems like if Ron Rivera is the coach, he would love to give him the opportunity anyway if Dwayne Haskins isn't performing to up to par. And then if all of a sudden, if Alex Smith is ready, then they do have a veteran quarterback there at least.
Yes.
That they could throw in if they really wanted to. That's why I don't think it's the best fit. I think it's a really slim possibility.
I would say it's like a top out of the 3 teams I have. This is probably the least likely to happen, in my opinion. Out of the top 3 teams I have.
Now let's go on to a team that we can both agree on here, and that would be the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes.
It just makes sense. Kirk Cousins there. He's the number 1 guy, of course. Mm-hmm. But their backup is Sean Mannion. Mannion, excuse me. I said Marion. That's an old NBA player. Sean Mannion, who I don't even know the last time he's played. We didn't even know who the backup was.
He has not played a single snap in the NFL, and for the Vikings, this makes a lot more sense.
He's never played a single snap?
He's never played a single snap in the NFL.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Okay. We'll stat check that later.
So, anyway, for Colin Kaepernick, it would be a great move because here's the other thing that you got to think about and take into consideration. We really don't know how much longer Kirk Cousins is going to be in Minnesota. I believe he's entering the final year of his contract. I believe it was only a 3-year contract that he ended up signing with the Vikings in the first place.
He might have 1 or 2 more years. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. But they do like him.
They do like him, but the question is, do they want to invest that much more money into him?
They already pay him a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They paid him a fully guaranteed contract. Colin Kaepernick is, like I said, in case of the Redskins, it's a low risk, high reward. Sure, you're gonna have to shell out a couple million to pay him, but
also
if Kirk Cousins struggles or gets hurt,
it's way better than Mannion.
It's way better than Mannion.
Sean Mannion as the backup. True, and at the same token of what you're saying about they don't know if they want to pay Kirk Cousins long term. If you sign Colin Kaepernick and you like what you see, it does make it easier to say, okay, Kirk, either take the lesser money or we'll move on with Colin Kaepernick as the guy moving forward. So Vikings, I think, is a realistic opportunity for Colin Kaepernick, and I think Steve and I can agree with. One that I don't think necessarily Steve and I agree with is I think the Patriots could be potentially a landing spot for him. Definitely with Stidham, the 4th round pick. He's really taking the reins right now, granting if something happened. Now, I don't think Belichick would go out and sign Colin Kaepernick, but realistically, and you look at other people and other analysts say, this really would be a ideal fit considering he would have to, he really wouldn't have to beat out Stidham and Hoyer,
Right.
Brian Hoyer.
He would basically
because
be the day one starter
He would be the number
at
one if he went
signing,
there. He's got the experience, he has the track record, and Belichick can probably do wonders with him. So
Right.
I think it would be a really good fit. It's just the idea of actually Belichick going out and spending the money to sign Colin Kaepernick is the thing that's kind of unrealistic.
Right.
But if that thing was if that were to happen, I think the fit would gel really well too.
Right. And the thought I had about that when we were talking about this before we obviously started recording the podcast, but the thing is, if you think about it, the Patriots, if they were really looking to upgrade the quarterback position, I feel like they would have done it by now. Because there was a lot of good options out there in the draft and in free agency. There wasn't any groundbreaking like a Kirk Cousins caliber that we saw a couple years ago. But Teddy Bridgewater was out there. Cam Newton was out there.
Cam Newton still is out there.
Cam Newton is still out there.
I do agree.
I think at this point, and they didn't even upgrade the quarterback position in the draft either.
Yeah,
which
I know
is something
they had
that you would
targets.
think they would.
Apparently, Belichick said he had targets, but they didn't fall to where they liked. But that's like a Belichick thing right there. And that goes into the fact that I think it's not really likely for the Patriots to sign him. But if he were to go there, I think the fit would actually work pretty well.
The other team that I had actually
was
another team in the AFC East, but the Miami Dolphins. And look, I know you don't understand it, but I'll put it to you like this: Tua has a shaky injury history, and that's got to concern the Dolphins. It has to. It can't not. And you have a quarterback who every other year sucks, just absolutely sucks.
Hey, don't do my boy Fitzpatrick like that.
You mean Fitztragic?
No, Fitzpatrick.
He's a heck of
a quarterback.
No, he's one of two players. He's either Fitzmagic or Fitztragic, because he's either really good or he's really bad.
Yeah, but when he's really good, he's really good.
Yes, and we saw that with the 1 year he played good with the Jets and the Bills before that, and he had a couple.
So it wasn't 1 year; it was a couple.
Well, the
years.
1 year with the Bills and 1 year with the Jets.
And then he got a big
contract.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's why it doesn't make sense to me is the fact that, you have Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think the Dolphins are expecting him to, at some point in the season, to be trash. And then, here comes Tua to save the day. So they're relying on those two quarterbacks right there. And then if Tua needs help, they'll go back to Fitzpatrick. I don't think they're necessarily caring about signing Colin Kaepernick because they spent a lot of money in other places already as well.
I think because I also think the media is going to play a lot into this, because the media has been talking up the Dolphins a lot with the free agency moves they made. They're like, oh, this is a win-now team. The offense is like a work in progress, but this defense is starting to become a really win-now defense. So go out there and get a quarterback that could help you win now, and would it be a perfect mentor, really, for Tua?
More or less. I do think he'd be a good mentor for Tua. I do think Fitzpatrick can play that role too, even though they're different styles of quarterbacks. He's been in the NFL for around 14 years. He can teach Tua a heck of a lot of knowledge from the quarterback position.
Let me ask you something. Do you think Tua is more closely related to Fitzpatrick and his play
course
style, or Colin Kaepernick?
Yes, of course. I know. I understand your point. I just don't think the Dolphins realistically are going to go out and sign Colin Kaepernick.
I don't think they will either, but I think it would be a very underrated fit because, like I said earlier, again, the low cost, high reward, or low risk, high reward. Colin Kaepernick, yes, you're going to have to spend probably I don't know, how much was he asking for from the Canadian Football League or the American Alliance of Football? He was asking for a lot of money.
I don't know.
No NFL team is going to give him the amount of money that he wanted. So he's gonna get signed for anywhere, I would say, from $5 to $10 million.
Probably,
at most $10 million. And
I feel like
lot.
He'll get signed between $3 to $5 million a year, something like that. But going to my last one, real quick, is if there's been talk that maybe the Ravens trade RG3, and if that happens, of course, I think the Ravens and him being behind Lamar Jackson would be a really good fit, though, too. The only thing is, I really like RG3 behind Lamar Jackson
Right.
already. I think it's already a good backup. But there was talk that RG3 did recently say, he still thinks he's at least 30. He's either 29 or 30, and he still thinks he can start in the NFL somewhere. Which I mean, I can't really doubt the guy. He should have good self-esteem to do that.
Right.
Before he got hurt, he was a starter with the Redskins. So there's talk that he wants to do that, and then there was talk that the Ravens did kind of shop him around a little bit. And if he were to get traded, I think the Colin Kaepernick signing to be the backup would be the most ideal thing, the most realistic thing there too
Right.
as well.
No, it does make a lot of sense, and a lot of these places you're gonna find Colin Kaepernick's at most gonna be starting as a backup.
But yeah,
Like,
he's not
even
going to go.
though he's got the
There's
talent.
no way he
to
goes
be,
into
yes.
a position where he starts right, except maybe the Patriots is the one.
maybe
is
the
one
Patriots,
situation.
and depending on Tua's health.
Stop
if
that.
I know it's
Stop
not
that.
possible, but
Now, before we move on to the next topic, there's one other factor that we really didn't talk about, which
Mm-hmm.
I've heard too, is the fact that there's some people that are saying that, Colin Kaepernick's been blackballed by the NFL for 3 years now.
right,
The biggest thing for the NFL is what it looks like they want to try to do is sign him and get him back to the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, because they feel like they've done wrong to this man.
right,
So I've heard from people saying that they think Colin Kaepernick shouldn't go back into the NFL because they blackballed him and now the NFL needs Colin Kaepernick.
right. So he should blackball them.
Yeah. I've heard that statement too. So ultimately, I think he wants to get back in the league. I do.
I don't think he'll do that because at the end of the day, because here's the other thing you got to take into account. Yes, he can, but he's 31 years old.
Yeah.
So it's not like he has all the time in the world for a professional football player's shelf life. You know what I mean? So if he did wait a year or two, he's only putting himself behind at a chance to make a real NFL comeback that he wants.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's like an out of the thought that I've heard from
Right.
literally on analysts on ESPN, NFL analysts on ESPN saying that. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head. I really should know that as a sports comm guy. But, that's a realistic thing to think about, too, to be honest with you, because he's so engraved in, Black Lives Matter movement
Right.
and things, and he should be. It's an awesome topic. And that's what he's knelt for, stood for,
Mm-hmm.
for all these years, and that's not going to change. But I'm saying if he wanted to, if he had that feeling of keeping, I feel like if he felt that by going back in the NFL, it hurt like his. I'm trying to think of the right things to say. It hurt the.
Right. The cause.
The cause, like what he's been advocating for,
Right.
then he wouldn't do it because that's been so important to him.
Right.
And I think that can play a part into the decision.
Mm-hmm. No, it definitely can. And even then, yes, you bring up that point, but if you look at what happened, do you remember, I think it was maybe a year ago, Nike had released a commercial with Colin Kaepernick in it.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, where most people would think, not most people, but some people would think that because around the time that it came out, he was more of a villain, I guess you could say, in the eyes of some, and the media and some. So you would think that Nike's stock would go down, but it actually increased by a lot.
When they
because,
released that commercial, their stocks went up a tremendous amount. Their
Tremendous,
sales
yes.
went up a tremendous amount too.
Yes, and that's what the NFL wants to do, and that's what, you know what I mean. That's exactly what's going to happen if he goes to the NFL. It's going to make the NFL a lot of money.
It probably will. I mean, and the NFL at the end of the day is a business as well, so
Yeah.
it makes sense. But moving on to the next topic, a recent bill that's been passed in Florida, which
The
you
only
guys-
state that's done this to
So-
this point.
so far, I believe.
the only state that's done this.
So it's a bill signed by the Florida governor Ron DeSantis, and basically the bill is allowing student athletes the following summer to
So
start
I believe
making
it would start in July 2021.
the following summer to make profit from endorsement deals from things like their likeness, their image, things like that. So doing commercials or endorsing a small shop in the town or something like that.
Right.
Which is a huge step for the NCAA. Well, I shouldn't say for the NCAA, more for the student athletes.
Yeah, more for the
because the
student
NCAA
athletes.
doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily want to do that. Even Mark Emmert, the NCAA president, strongly opposed.
And if you're Zion Williamson, you got to be pinching yourself right now. Like, what the hell? I was here like a couple years after he gets out.
Well, he's in North Carolina, but was that South Carolina?
But I'm
dude?
saying if
no, North Carolina, I think.
but What I'm saying is,
yes,
like,
he could have made money. I
He
understand.
could have made money.
But guess what? We'll see in this lawsuit that Zion made money illegally.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a different topic.
That's a different topic.
But he could have made a bunch of
Yeah.
money if this was the
because
case in his state.
You could argue that he was the biggest high school basketball player coming out since LeBron.
Yes, you could, of course. But going back to what I was
Yes,
saying before you
course.
rudely interrupted me.
I just always rudely interrupt.
But I was saying how Mark Emmert, the NCAA president, strongly opposed to having individual states create laws that dictate the rules and how college athletes can profit from their likeness. Because obviously that gives less power away from the NCAA and kind of goes away from the amateurism in college sports. But if you look at the pay gap between the scholarship money they give out is around $250 to $300 million to the revenue they make a year, which is around $1 billion, $1.2 billion. Obviously, that's a huge discrepancy. So there's money to be made by the college athletes, and I've always been an advocate for college athletes deserving to get paid in different ways, and and especially in endorsements. If you don't think the colleges should pay them directly, I can at least have a conversation with you and be like, okay, if that's what you believe.
Right.
And, you know, the education is the thing that they're going for.
And
but
this is something
the fact
else
that they
too,
restricted them,
right?
and Florida's the first state to really do this, but the fact that NCAA restricts them from not using their own image, like going on YouTube and making YouTube videos on how to kick, and then getting ad money off of it, and then that being, you know, you getting suspended for that, I think it's ridiculous.
Right.
So this is a huge step for student athletes.
And you also got to think about it in the recruiting aspect. Like, now more students and more up-and-coming players of these sports are going to want to go down to Florida because, let's say, for some reason, no other state decides to do this and Florida's the only state. A lot of the top athletes coming out of high school are going to want to commit to those Florida colleges because of this. Like, they could make money. They could go to school, get an education, and still make money.
Yeah. I talked about you this before because that's the coaching side of me
Yeah.
coming out. Is these Florida coaches are thinking, like, if as long as we're the first state. So here, before I go into that, there's 24 other states that are in various stages considering similar bills to pass that will give student athletes a way to make money off their own likeness off endorsement deals.
Right.
But at Florida being the first one to pass this bill next summer, if you're a coach down in Florida, I mean, it's a recruiting pitch that no other school in other states have.
Right.
Saying, if you come to my school, you can actually make money off your likeness.
Right.
And a big time athlete like Zion, like if you presented that to Zion, does he go to Duke or does he go to Florida State, for example? With you know what I mean? Because Duke, they don't have that right now. So does that persuade him to be like, well, I can actually go and make at least some money over here and still get, still improve my game and things like that.
Right.
And if other states start to do this, obviously that negates itself. But if Florida's the only one coming next season, which there'll probably be a couple ones before the next season.
It's gonna slowly start making its way until probably all 50 states are gonna incorporate it, and they're just gonna come up with a deal where NCAA and they say, look, you make all this revenue, give some to the players.
Well, that's a whole
different thing, but that's obviously in the long-term future.
This is the most simple thing that should have been done. It should be done in all NCAA sports, that the athletes can use their own image, their own likeness to create money for themselves, because you're restricting a person then from using their own image. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So I mean, it's a great first step for student athletes, but it should be allowed in all 50 states in all fairness. And
we're probably going to slowly start seeing that happening.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Right.
It is going to slowly start happening. I just think Florida, at the time being, recruiting-wise, it's a big advantage for those coaches.
A huge advantage. But we also have to see, because you said there's how many other states in the kind of discussion
24
process?
so it's about 24 other states. So almost half the country, basically.
Right.
But, if, let's say, the other half of the countries that don't necessarily have those bills set in place, and I think actually California did a bill like that already as well, which I don't know if that's for next summer as well, so that actually might be another state that we didn't touch on. I don't want you guys to think we don't know what we're talking about.
Or you could have just given them some misleading information. So then we really don't know what we're talking about.
But no, it's cool for student athletes, and I think it's a big step. And it's another warning sign for the NCAA to say, hey, student athletes deserve at least to use their own image and take some of that controlling, I guess, factors away from the NCAA, who could be a little mean sometimes, I guess is a polite way to say it.
Polite way to say it. A PG, polite way.
But guess what's coming up, Steven? You know.
We got some soccer coming up.
That's right.
We got some soccer.
Slowly
but surely.
Slowly and surely, we've had soccer come back. First, it was the Bundesliga.
We were just watching some Bundesliga today as well. Some
That's
Bayern,
right.
Dortmund,
Yep.
all that good stuff.
Now you got La Liga back, and you have Serie A back. Great things to see. And the
Probably
final
the one
really
where we are most excited for.
the
Because it
Premier
is
League,
our
of course.
personal. I think we're in agreement that between all the international soccer leagues, the Premier League and Bundesliga are our top two.
Okay, well,
Premier League is my number one for sure.
See, I watch everything.
I know
I'm
you
like
watch
a soccer
everything, yeah.
fanatic, but I mean, I love teams from Serie A, from La Liga. Barcelona is obviously great from La Liga. Serie A, you got Inter, Juventus, Lazio. I really like that team. I can never say it right. It's Atlanta, I think, but it's like
Atalanta.
It's like it's spelled with an A at the end. That team is really fun to watch too because the whole city became behind them because they were in like the top 3 of the league like for the first time. So like those stories, I always follow that sort of stuff. But Premier League, obviously, you can make the cases some of the best soccer in the world or the best soccer in the world.
And some of the best soccer players in the world as well.
For sure. And we kind of want to just highlight this. The first game back is a really good one, right? It's the absolute first one.
I believe that is the second one.
Oh, it's the second one.
Because I think it's more like the NFL doing the week 1 Saturday or Thursday preview where they.
But it will be on Friday, June 17th.
Yes, Friday, June 17th. We will finally have our first Premier League games coming back from the Corona situation. Which is going to be very exciting. I'm very excited for it.
For a second, I really thought you forgot the team's names. I don't know if you did or not, because you kind of paused.
Yes, sometimes it takes me a second to think about what I want to say. So, the first game we're going to go through is Manchester City versus Arsenal. And I think that's going to be a very exciting one. That's the nightly game, like the prime time Thursday night football, if you will.
Here will probably play at 12:30.
Yes,
I'd imagine they would play at 12:30 in America time.
Yes, in American time.
Unless there's some people listening to this that are not in America, which would be cool.
Yeah, that would be very
cool. But yeah, so that's definitely the prime time one. Great 2 teams. Liverpool's already won the Premier League.
Yes.
That kind of does take the excitement out of it. But these teams are fighting for UEFA League champion spots.
Well, not Manchester City because they're banned.
Well, it hasn't officially been banned yet.
It's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to be
I'm trying to give you a little hope here. But Man City and Arsenal, that will be a good game, obviously.
Because both have extremely talented attacking midfielders, central defensive midfielders, wingers, strikers. That's where they're known, and that's what's going to sell them their tickets. And win them their games.
Sell them their tickets is no fans, but people will watch the game.
Yes.
On TV.
So the thing that's very similar about these two and what's going to be very interesting about this game is that both of these defenses, at least up until this point in the year, were struggling mightily.
Definitely.
And there were a lot of injuries between both. I think both of them had center back injury issues.
Yeah, both teams, especially Arsenal. Arsenal's back for definitely middle of the season. Watching them play, they weren't getting the right movements. All right, the center backs weren't really on the same page, and they were kind of all over the place, to be honest with you. Maybe during the break they kind of fixed that, and same thing with Man City.
And plus, with the break, it's possible that these players have had extra time to recover and recuperate and really push through and kind of speed the healing process along in their bodies, which is going to be huge and very interesting to see. But I think Man City and Arsenal is going to be a very interesting matchup, and I think both of the teams are going to come out firing on all cylinders and trying to do whatever they can to get this first win back from Corona break for their fans and for their, for their hopes.
Definitely an exciting one for being the first one to come back, that game. So I think a lot of people will look forward to it. But another great one, then the following day.
Actually, it's 2 days. It's on the 19th.
I didn't do my research. Yes. Excuse me. The following day, the 19th, so Sunday, right?
Sunday the 19th.
Sunday the 19th would be Tottenham Spurs versus Manchester United.
Another very good game.
It's another very good game that will definitely go at each other. You'll see Harry Kane up top there for the Spurs.
Right. Paul Pogba for United leading them. He's been struggling a little bit this year from what I remember, and
then there's also the rumors that he might leave and things like that. But obviously, he's one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, he's a fantastic midfielder and can really pinpoint out his teammates from anywhere on the field. And when I say, you know what I mean by passing the ball, like he's able to make passes that not a lot of people are able to. And I think that's going to be a huge asset and very interesting to watch in the game, because I think both where Tottenham more has their firepower in their strikers and forwards, I feel like most of the weapons Man United have is more in the midfield. But at the same time, you have these players like, you know what player I'm really excited to see for Tottenham is Son.
He's awesome.
He's awesome.
He works so tirelessly. Yes. He's really fun to watch. But I also think Man U's defense is really solid. You know, you have Harry Maguire. You also have Luke Shaw back there. So you have pretty decent defenders back there as well. Or Shaw's more of a midfielder, I guess.
It's going to be very interesting.
Eric Bailey. He's good.
It's going to be very interesting to see how Harry Kane can work his magic up against that defense.
You also have Marcus Rashford up top, who was in great form before coronavirus hit.
So he should be huge, and he's young. He's extremely young.
You'll probably see Juan Mata off the bench. I think they were bringing him off the bench before coronavirus happened. David De Gea in goal, great player in there. Yeah. And the Spurs, like you said, they go deep too.
And their keeper too, the Spurs.
Yeah.
Ericsson is his name, I believe, right?
Is it Ericsson?
I believe it is Ericsson.
I'm about to find out.
I could be wrong. But...
No, Lloris. I can't believe
Hugo Lloris.
Yes,
that's right.
French
that's
goalie.
Right.
Awesome goalie.
Yeah.
Huge goalie too. He's like 6 something, 6 foot, I don't know, 4 or something like that. But really good goalie. Definitely up there with like top 10 in the world. But their defense is very good too. They got Anderweireld and Vertonghen and Eric Dyer, who are 3 great. Usually, I think they play more like a 3-4-3. I might be wrong on that. But don't get mad at me if I am. But those three defenders right there are really good in the league. And then you have Ali you have Ali in the midfield. And like you said, Son, Eric Lamela. I think Eric Lamela's Harry Kane. Yep. So they have really good up top players. And the midfield's pretty solid too. Moussa Sissoko, is pretty decent as well. And they have Walcott, as well, and he's a little older now, I'm pretty sure. No, I'm sorry, that's a youngster. I'm thinking of old Walcott.
Right.
But yeah, so both teams obviously have, good players.
Yeah. These are some of the top teams in the Premier League too. So having these as the first matches when we get back is really a treat.
Yeah,
it really is a treat.
It's not like Man U's playing, I don't know, What's
Leeds United?
Leeds is in Division 3.
Exactly.
So I don't know about that. Maybe like a Norwich.
You're right. Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. So good games. 2 really solid games for the first weekend. I don't know. Was that scheduled before coronavirus, or was that just how they did it when they came back?
I believe that's how they did it. I could be wrong, but they could have at least picked which games they wanted to come back with and to start off with. And I think they picked 2 very solid games to do that with.
Yeah, so honestly, this is a huge game for Man U because they're 5th place. And I'm pretty sure the top 4 go to UEFA Champions League automatically, so they definitely want to get into the top 4.
If that's the case, then they should be able to make UEFA Champions League even in 5th place.
Well, they'll do
if Manchester City ends up having that ban, then Manchester United basically has the last.
So basically, you're saying is because they are technically the 4th team of Manchester City. Because yes, Manchester City is 2nd, Leicester's 3rd, Chelsea 4th, and then Man U 5th, and Wolves are 6th, and then Sheffield United is actually 7th. They've had a really good year. Then Tottenham 8 and Arsenal 9. So Tottenham is really trying to get a win to get into at least Europa League, and maybe push their way into UEFA.
And this is crazy because they were just in the UEFA Champions League final last year.
Yeah, and now they're
fighting.
Now
they're
maybe
fighting to even get into Europa.
Yeah, Europa.
Which is crazy to talk about and think about.
For sure. But those, great matchups. Arsenal's 9 versus Man City 2, and then Tottenham 8 versus Man United 5. So, obviously these are going to be really good games. Definitely good for soccer in general.
Right, exactly.
So, moving on to the last topic
We're going
of
to talk
discussion.
about a little bit of basketball.
A little bit of my unfortunate Knicks. Well, maybe it won't be unfortunate. Maybe they'll
depends.
find
We'll
the
see.
right guy.
So, the right guy for what position? What are we talking about
Oh,
here?
yeah, we don't know what we're talking about.
A new head coach, obviously.
As everyone knows, Mike Miller is there as the interim head coach. He did a decent
job.
I really like him because he really, he spent 4 years or 5 years in the G League doing the Westchester Knicks, so he paid his dues, basically.
Right.
Became the top assistant this year under Dave Fizdale. He got fired, which, kind of deservedly so, even though I
Right.
like Fizdale. And he did a decent job in, I guess,
Right.
weathering the storm.
He's kind of got
and
a
the transition.
similar kind of coaching story to how he came to become a head coach as Nick Nurse, because Nick Nurse
Let's put everything back to the Raptors. I totally see.
So Nick Nurse started in Europe, won championships there, went to the G League, won championships there, and
Yeah.
eventually became the head coach of the
it's
Toronto Raptors.
true. It's true.
And sometimes you could see, and that's the point I was going to make with this. Sometimes the coaches that have had different experiences other than just the NBA and was able to really learn and grow from these different things, a lot of times you see they become pretty decent coaches.
No, I mean, I'm not going to disagree.
That was the
with you.
point I was trying to make.
Obviously, it's the same concept not the same concept, but like Nick Nurse coaching in Europe and coaching overseas, then coaching the G League. Like the vast experiences and knowledge you get from doing those different type of coaching gigs than maybe just being an assistant on a NBA bench for 10, 15 years and then hoping one day you'll get your shot to be an NBA coach. It's different. And you learn way more, and you have more practical experience as a head coach, obviously, doing those things and building your resume up that way than just being an assistant in the NBA. So I do agree with you, and Mike Miller's and Nick Nurse's paths are similar in some regard, for sure. But it seems like they at least want to move on from Mike Miller being the head coach. To me, it seems like they want to keep him around to be maybe the top assistant or, one of the top assistants, which I think he totally deserves, unless he doesn't want to.
I mean, for all you know, he could be wanting to look for a head coaching job himself after.
It's true.
You could argue that he proved himself what kind of coach he could be.
Yeah,
with the
he beat
Knicks.
the Rockets He beat the Rockets. I think his overall record after Fizdale got fired was something like 18-27, which isn't too bad.
For the Knicks. Exactly.
Exactly.
That's like a winning record.
Steven, be quiet right now. You don't understand the pain of Knicks fans. But
really, I don't understand the pain of Knicks fans.
Stop talking.
Let me ask you something before we continue with this. Am I a Jets fan?
Yeah, you're a Jets
so
fan.
I know what it's freaking like, my friend.
But I want to talk about some of the top candidates.
Yes, of course.
For the
We got
next
a little
head
off
coaching
topic,
job. Of
but
course, 'cause
yes.
we got to talk about your Raptors. We got to talk about your Jets. I mean, what else we got to talk about?
You're telling me that I don't know what it's like, bro. I've been a Jets fan for 21 years.
Oh, be quiet. But anyway, I want to go into the head coaches for the Knicks. So the first name that gets thrown around the most has been Tom Thibodeau, who recently was the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Timberwolves. He didn't have the best track record there to say. I'm pretty sure he was the general manager and head coach and really couldn't get it done. He had some decent seasons, like close to 500 seasons, but never really got that team to where the management really saw them going with Karl Anthony Towns and when they had Jimmy Butler, and Zach LaVine was there as well when he was there.
I believe Zach LaVine was incorporated in the trade over to Chicago.
That's right.
When Jimmy Butler went over to Minnesota.
I'm thinking of another. Oh, Andrew Wiggins was the other guy I was thinking about.
Yeah.
So, he's definitely a front runner for sure. And I've heard a lot of news about him coming in, and he has a track record to take it over. Me necessarily, I don't think he's the best fit. If you're to be honest, I don't think he's been really that successful in the past couple of years of his coaching career. I think he's been on a downturn for sure. From going from the Bulls to the Wolves, and then the Wolves, he really didn't have a good stint there.
And I think if there was a report that came out about him about overworking his players, correct? That's the other thing you got to worry about if you're the Knicks. You already have a poisonous owner. Why do you want to add more poison?
Yeah, talking about the poisonous owner, but I did think like Jimmy Butler probably grew a little tired of the things that happened there too, and that's why he wanted to go to the 76ers at that point and he'd be traded. A person I really like to get the job is the previous Nets head coach, Kenny Atkinson, who they fired recently before coronavirus happened. Probably because
they mutually agreed to part ways because I don't think Atkinson wanted to be there either, right?
Let's say, well, you know how they PR spins it off,
yes.
but yeah, so they mutually parted,
quote unquote,
or mutually agreed to part ways.
Yes,
but
sounds like they're getting out of a relationship.
It seems like it seems like Kyrie Irving and maybe Kevin Durant had a say in that.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like Kyrie was happy with him. I don't know when the guy is happy, to be honest with you.
But that's that. Kyrie is a topic for yet another podcast we have coming up soon.
For sure. But I think his track record and how he really started from the ground up. You know, all these coaches really do, of course. But he worked his tail off to get to where he was. And I think he mutually parted ways, not in the best way, because I don't think it was fair in how they did it. And I think he'd be a great candidate. And a report recently came out that he has internal support from some I was about to say faculty, some internal staff in the Knicks organization, where I've heard they really like Kenny Atkinson to get the job. Which, in my opinion, as a Knicks fan, as a journalist as well, as a Knicks fan, I would want that to happen. Right. And as a journalist, I actually think it's a pretty good fit.
And if you look at it, I forget exactly how long Kenny Atkinson was there for, but if you look at what he came into, the Nets were really not a very good team.
They weren't, and he got
built
them
it up
with D'Angelo Russell and LeVert, and even Jared Dudley. You can say he got it to a 6th seed and really fought hard with the 76ers in the playoffs the year before. Exactly. And then they trade D'Angelo Russell, and they try to go for the stars.
And now they have all these big signings.
It's right. They should go for the stars if that's what they want to do.
But the point is, Kenny Atkinson had brought the Nets up to a point where all they needed to really take the next step was a couple stars. You know what I mean? He had Karis LeVert. He was able to turn him into a good player. Jared Allen, he was able to turn him into a solid player in this league.
Jared Allen's very good.
So if you're a Knicks fan, you got to be happy with the fact that he's even considering the Knicks position. Because if you look, he went from a crappy situation in Brooklyn and turned it around into something now that's supposed to be good. You for all you know, he can do the same thing with the Knicks.
He can do the same thing with the Knicks. And think about what you just mentioned, Jared Allen. Think about what he could do with Mitchell Robinson at the Knicks, which I think a lot of Knicks fans would drool over. This to get Kenny Atkinson working with Mitchell Robinson to get him better than what he already is at 21.
Right.
So I like him a lot. I think it's a good fit. And it seems like he has at least some support from staff members inside the Knicks organization.
I would prefer Atkinson for the Knicks over Thibodeau.
Yeah.
I think that would be a much better fit and cultural shift as well for that locker room and what they desperately need.
Absolutely. Another name thrown around there, and he's been thrown around with other head coaching vacancies, is Mark Jackson, the commentator.
Yes.
He used to coach. He coached the Warriors back in the day. He's been thrown around there and just said he's definitely wanted to coach again. So it's somebody that they're definitely looking at. I don't necessarily think he's the top front runner, of course, because he hasn't coached in a long time. He's been commentating, but it's something I think they'll at least maybe give him an interview. It seems like with his coaching experience, they'll do that as well. Another guy they liked who actually used to be a former Knick head coach is Mike Woodson, who's on the Clippers staff as an assistant, I believe, currently. He used to be the head coach there when they had the previous best season. They had about 53 wins with Mike Woodson, Carmelo Anthony, Tyson Chandler, and Raymond Felton as sort of like the three good guys there.
And even then, if you talk about them now...
I think they had Steve Novak as well. So a couple of really cool... J.R. Smith was probably there as well.
Right,
So it was a cool season, and he did a great job. And then after that season, it kind of went downhill, and obviously he lost his job there. But they were seriously, at least is what I heard, is they were seriously looking at Mike Woodson as well. And at the very least, they would love to bring Mike Woodson as long as the top assistant, if they don't want to take the head coaching route, is what I've heard as well.
Right.
And then the last guy I would say is a deep dark horse runner is Jeff Van Gundy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's been on the commentator side and doing more talking head things as well, but he has a fantastic coaching career where he's done head coaching and ops stuff at the same time with getting players and coaching. He has a phenomenal track record And I see him as a very dark horse to get the head coach job. I don't think it will happen, but I do think it's warranted to give him an interview of how much experience he's had with coaching the Pistons and things like that.
Now, I have a question for you. Did the Knicks already sign their new general manager or president of basketball operations?
Well, they got rid of...
Who was it that they just got rid of? Because I know
It
that...
wasn't Steve Mills, was it?
I know it was somebody high up because they were looking to other
there's the ops,
presidents
there's the
and
GM
stuff.
and the ops, and one of them left, but they extended the other one for a year. I think Steve Mills got extended for a year, and the other one left.
Because the other thing I was thinking was they also need to fill that position if they have not already.
Oh, Steve Mills is the one who left. Steve Mills is an American sports executive who last served as president of the New York Knicks. So he left, Steve Mills, and the other guy there is I totally forget. And I should know this as a Knicks fan. It's gonna.
But
Scott Perry is
right.
That's who is still there. He's
the
the
thing
GM.
that I think the Knicks really need is someone that's going to instill hard work and culture building into that organization.
They hired Leon Rose to come in and be the
That's right. That's who I was.
That's who they
thinking
hired,
of,
and they
yes.
got rid of. I just said Steve Mills, but Scott Perry's there, and they gave him one more year contract extension to prove basically if he's still the right guy for the job. If they lose again, he'll probably get the boot as well. But Leon Rose has been doing a great job and bringing in people you like. Actually, one of the things I actually wrote down that I wasn't sure I was going to get to is recently the Knicks added this scout and ops guy called Alex Klein.
He's called Alex Klein?
Yeah.
Is that not his actual name?
It is, no. His name's Alex Klein. Why? Why are you smiling?
Because you're calling him... Never mind. Because you call someone by their nickname. You don't... You know what I mean?
Oh, because I said he's called Alex Klein?
Yes.
His name is Alex
Yes.
Klein. My bad. I was like, what the heck did I say wrong? But his name's Alex Klein, and he's only 26 years old. I almost look up to the guy. He's only 26 years old. He was in the Pelicans organization for 4 years at the age of 21. He made his own website at the age of 15 and things like that to know high school players and recruiting, and he did his own basketball games.
Right.
So he really got to know athletes that were big time potential talents. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, was one of them and stuff like that. And he knew all these players and had their numbers and things like that. So he built his way up that way and using the players as his chips.
And Karl Anthony Towns is a free agent soon.
So
I might as well just start the rumors now because they're just going to come up sooner or later.
So they signed this 26-year-old kid.
Right.
And I think he can actually sort of be an X factor in recruiting players and scouting, and he's also a scout in scouting teams and things like that. And they signed him literally 2 days ago, I believe. Well, when this comes out, it might be a little more than 2 days ago. But nonetheless, I think it's a good signing by Leon Rose to steal him from the Pelicans in the first place. He's 26 years old and has done a lot in the position that he has right now.
Can I just ask, how many coaches, presidents of basketball operations, and all these other positions are you going to go through before you realize the real problem is the owner?
Well, you can't really change the owner because he
know.
owns everything.
I know.
But I just saw the funny clip of Carmelo Anthony talking with, oh my God, the TNT host. I love him. Oh my God. I can't think of his name.
Does he do the halftime specials?
Yes, with Shaq.
Or,
What's his name?
Or, Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, Ernie
Johnson. Is it Ernie Johnson? Are you sure it's Ernie Johnson?
I believe, yes.
He had a... Yes, it is Ernie Johnson. I can't believe I didn't remember that. I feel disgraced right now. But he had an interview with Ernie Johnson over Zoom. And he was like, the one regret I have is having 200 different players and coaches in my time with the Knicks, as Carmelo Anthony said. So I don't know if that's going to change. Hopefully it does change, and we actually have a roster that has similar players, similar coaches, so we can actually build something, where the Knicks can build something.
Right.
But we will see, right?
We will see.
That's what happened in next season. We'll see, because obviously they're not in the format to go into Orlando for a good reason. So we'll see how they build up and who they hire. But at the moment, that's really it for us.
All right. That's all we got for today, this podcast.
That's about it. But thank you guys for listening. Follow our website, basement-sports-talk.com. Follow our social media accounts. We have a cool thing called Great Debates on there. Check it out on Instagram. And comment, email us away. But thanks for sticking around for this long, and stay safe.